My foot on the gas like I'm tryna bust out the bottom. Watch out slide, a nigga get off like a potter. Catch me if you can, I'm a bad man. Live a double life like I'm Batman. My foot on the gas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Mike from Balls of Fury. We're covering part 2 of ball python care in this episode, and we will be talking about the caging for your ball python. I'm going to show you guys a few different caging options that you can use to successfully keep your ball python, and it will be caging options that your ball python will be comfortable in and will thrive in. So there's a few different types of caging options that you guys will have available to you. We prefer to use tubs and rack systems here at Balls of Fury just because we have a very large collection of snakes, and it's just a more efficient way to keep the snakes in large numbers, and it also is just what we have found works best for us as far as the snakes being comfortable and thriving and consistently eating. But you can also use glass tanks if you prefer that, if it's just for a pet. I have kept ball pythons in glass tanks, and they've done fine in those as well. But make sure that you start your ball python off in something small, especially if you're just getting a baby ball python. Ball pythons are very shy animals, so sometimes if you put them in an enclosure that is too large for them, it could stress them out and cause them not to want to eat, and that could lead you to some problems down the road if you do not correct these things. So I'll show you guys what we actually set the snakes up in here at Balls of Fury. I'm sure you guys have seen it in some of our other videos if you've been watching our channel, and I'll show you guys basically the whole setup, and I'll explain to you guys how we got our ball pythons all set up with their hides, their heat, and everything like that. Okay guys, so this is pretty much the basic setup that we use here at Balls of Fury. This is actually a 32 quart Sterilite tub. You can literally get these at Walmart or Target, anywhere like that. You can see our beautiful Batman is out chilling. She is awesome. But basically what we got here is our substrate. Now, we are using Repti-Bark by ZoomEd, but you can use a lot of different types of substrate, from paper towel to cypress mulch. Just remember and keep in mind, wherever you live in the country, if you live in a drier environment, you're going to want to use something that is able to hold humidity. Repti-Bark does a great job. Coconut husk does a great job. So does cypress mulch. All those are great beddings for your ball python. And basically with your ball python, you want to provide them with a humidity of about 50 to 60% in the cage at all times. This is what they would be used to in the wild. And then when they do go into a shed, you're going to want to bump that up a little bit. And there are ways to do that, and we will go over that in that part of the care video section. And basically for a ball python, like I said, they're very shy animals. As you can see, she's out right now. She looks absolutely gorgeous, and she is getting so big. But you see that I have multiple hiding options in this enclosure for this snake. Now, the reason for that is because ball pythons will absolutely use hiding options. I'm not really a believer in the tub being a hiding option itself. And as you can see, our tubs are actually clear. So, the tub as a hiding option isn't really an option for us because you can see through it and the snake may not feel safe. So we offered her multiple hides. We've set some up on one end of the cage and the other end of the cage. That way she can properly thermoregulate. We usually put the heat on one side and we'll leave the other side as the cool end, so that way she can choose where she wants to go, whether she wants to warm up or cool down. Right now she's hanging out on the cool end and she's just chilling. We also have our water dish in here, guys. You always want to offer fresh water to your snakes. That's very important to keep them hydrated. And this is pretty much the basic setup. Now, this girl could pretty much live in this enclosure for about the first year and a half of her life, I would say. Right now, she's probably about 500 grams snake. She's doing awesome in here. And sometimes with ball pythons, smaller is better. She will get an upgrade when she's ready. However, if she stops feeding or anything like that, we will definitely put her back into a smaller tub to get her back onto food if that's what she feels comfortable with. And basically, guys, just listen to your snakes. They'll tell you what you want, what they want. If they don't feel comfortable in an environment, they will let you know by either stop feeding or, being stressed out. So Pay attention to what your snake's saying. She's checking us out. She's just absolutely awesome, man. I love the Batman. So cool. But yeah, we'll set up our hot spot on this side. I have another one over there that she could go and hang out in just to take up some space. But ball pythons really like a lot of clutter. And you guys can really use whatever you want as hiding spots. We are using these ceramic rock caves that I bought from a local pet store. But I've used plastic flower pots. There's an array of different types of hides from pet stores you guys can buy, but I wouldn't recommend getting ones with multiple openings. I usually stick to ones that just have an opening in the front. That way the snake can actually cram itself in there and feel very, very safe and secure, and it can't feel like anything's going to come up from behind it and actually attack it. So pretty basic setup, you guys. Now for an adult, we will actually give them like a 62 or 70 quart Sterilite tub. As you can see, I've drilled holes into the side of the enclosure. I've also done the same thing on the lid, just because we don't want it to get too humid in there, because these tubs hold heat and humidity really, really well. I always say that it's easier to add humidity to an enclosure than it is to take it away. So make sure you provide proper ventilation to your snakes if you do so and you use one of these tubs. Now, I just honestly used a drill to drill those holes through the tub to create the ventilation holes, but you can use anything like a drill or a soldering iron to melt the holes through, but drill works perfectly fine. This girl is doing awesome, and I love this snake. To mention in the last part, you want your hot spot to be about 88 to 92 degrees. You're going to definitely want to buy a temperature gun so that you can measure the temperature accurately. Let's see what the hot side is actually reading right now. We're reading at about 92 right there, and we can get a reading right on the snake too. She's about 80 degrees. So the advantage of having a heat gun is you can literally point it at any area of the tub and get a temperature reading of any area of the enclosure, whether it's a glass enclosure or a tub like this. Now for the humidity reading, I do have a humidity gauge in this room. This room stays about 50 to 60% humidity. And that's how I basically tell the humidity. But I will be upgrading my temp gun to one that actually reads humidity too, so that way it's nice and accurate. But you'll definitely be able to tell if your humidity is off, if the snake is having trouble shedding, or if the snake's eyes look wrinkled. That's a sign that the snake is dehydrated and it's not getting enough humidity. But basically, we'll put the heat pad on this side. We'll connect it to a thermostat. I'll show you guys those items as well, so you have an idea of what those are, and it works awesome. Also, guys, when you're looking at buying an enclosure, make sure you get one with locking lids, man. Snakes are escape artists, so you want to make sure that thing is locked and secured, because I'll tell you what, man, it is not fun trying to find a snake, especially one of size like that, because they can literally squeeze into the smallest crevice or corner and hide there, and it's a pain in the butt to try to find them. So always buy a tub or a tank that locks so that your snake cannot escape from it. And also, you know, we'll go back into the cage fixtures a little bit, because I know that my setup is pretty basic, just hides and everything, but you guys can put whatever you want in there, really. I mean, the more clutter you have, especially for a baby ball python, the better. With, you know, these tubs, we only have so much height to work with, but you could certainly put some branches in here if you wanted to offer that to your snake. The hides are definitely essential, especially for babies, man. They make them feel so much safer. We've had a lot of success with this setup. You know, the snakes eat really, really well. As you can see, this girl's getting nice and thick. She's getting nice and big, but those hiding spots are key, you guys. And like I said, you can pretty much make it as fancy as you want to, or as simple as you want to. But just remember, the more stuff that you have in this tub, the more stuff you're going to have to clean and disinfect when it comes time to do that for your snake. So just keep that in mind, you guys. And, you know, just keep in mind that you can make your tank however you want it to be. And you can provide your snake with awesome fixtures and plants and whatever you want to do. You can make it as fancy or as simple as you want. This is the heating element that we use right here, you guys. This is a under the tank heat pad made by Zoomed. This one is made for a 10 to 20 gallon tank. You can use it on a glass tank or these tubs, but you definitely want to buy a thermostat, you guys. Now this is a pretty high-tech one. I unplugged it for a minute just to show you guys, but you can buy a pretty reasonably priced one from the pet store. I know ZoomEd makes a really cool one for your pets that are about $70. This is like a $250 piece of equipment, but this is designed to have multiple heat pads plugged into it. And basically what the thermostat does is it controls the heat output of your heat pad so that it can't overheat or get too cold, which is something that I once learned the hard way. I actually had a snake that did get burned by a heating pad, and it unfortunately ended up perishing and failing to survive. It was completely my fault because I didn't, realize I needed a thermostat, and this was when I was first starting out with keeping snakes. So it was a very unfortunate situation. I learned a lesson the hard way, but you definitely want to get yourself one of these thermostats, and this is the heating element that you need. Now, ball pythons don't require any sort of lighting. As you can see in the room behind me, there's plenty of windows here. I usually let the snakes just get the natural sunlight for their lighting. And if you do run lighting, you're gonna wanna run it on a 12-hour on, 12-hour off cycle. So 12 hours lights on, 12 hours lights off, because ball pythons are nocturnal like we discussed in the last video. And if you have a light on them all the time, this is going to stress your snake out. It's going to throw their biological clock off, and it's not going to allow them to act like a natural ball python, and it's just going to cause your animal stress, and it's going to cause your animal to fail and possibly perish. So you don't need to use any sort of supplemental lighting for these guys. Under the tank heat source works great. You want that belly heat for them, especially for their digestion, and it's going to provide them a nice warm and toasty hot spot. And if you guys do decide to keep your snake in a glass enclosure with a screen top, you could also use ceramic heat emitters on the top. These do not provide any sort of light. They actually just emit heat from a bulb, and those work great as well. When I used to keep snakes in tanks, I would use these, especially during the winter time when you need that little extra bit of heat, because your snake room or wherever you're keeping your snake at is a little bit cooler during those times of year. But the heat pad is definitely key. You need that. These things are essential to your ball python, you guys. As far as glass enclosures go, I don't actually have an example to show you guys, but most glass enclosures that are made specifically for reptiles come with a screen top lid. And the problem I've seen with glass enclosures is that they do not hold heat and humidity extremely well. The problem with the screen top is that it allows the escape of moisture and heat very easily. So if you guys do go with a glass tank, ways that you can actually, fight this is by covering, half the screen top with like a towel or some sort of barrier that's going to help trap that heat and humidity in there, and keep the parameters correct for your ball python to be healthy and happy. But also with glass tanks, I talked about the sizes that you can keep your snakes in with tubs. As far as glass enclosures for a baby ball python, I wouldn't recommend anything larger than a 10-gallon enclosure. I know you guys that are out there who are avid pet keepers, and you're not really looking to breed or anything like that. You want to give your ball python a nice big space to roam and stretch out and do its thing. But I would start them off small, let them grow a bit in this 10-gallon enclosure, and then I would upgrade them to like a 20-gallon enclosure. Let them grow a bit more. Then I would upgrade them to maybe a 30 or 40-gallon tank when the time is right. Now also, another thing you can do with glass enclosures, and even like the tubs you can see behind me, if you have a very shy snake, you can actually cover 3 sides of the enclosure with some paper or anything like that, so the snake feels a little bit more secure, and it also doesn't feel like you can view it from everywhere, and it feels vulnerable. It feels like it's a threat to its life. So you could actually cover the sides of the enclosure to make the snake feel a little bit more secure and safe in there. And also for an adult snake, I typically think that a big enough enclosure for them where they'll feel comfortable and they'll be able to stretch out is something that would be about 36 inches long, 18 inches high, and about 12 inches wide. So those are about the parameters that I feel a ball python can comfortably live its life in, and you could successfully keep an adult ball python in something like that. Guys, it's important that you don't put your snake's enclosure in somewhere that is a high traffic area. You want your snake to feel comfortable and safe. So if you have other pets, or if you have a lot of guests coming over your house, don't put your snake right in the middle of the living room where everybody's hanging out, or where there's a lot of people interacting and hanging out all the time, because this can stress the snake out. You definitely want the snake to be in like a secluded area where you can go and interact with it from time to time and actually have it feel very safe and comfortable. So don't put it in a heavy traffic area. And as far as temperatures go, guys, you want your ball python to have an ambient temperature of about 80 to 82 degrees. You want their cool side. I usually keep their cool side between like 75 to 80 degrees, give or take. Usually during the day it's about 80 degrees, and at nighttime I'll let it drop a little bit as it naturally gets cooler outside. And then for the hot side, you're gonna wanna keep a basking spot of about 88 to 92 degrees so that your snake can easily digest food, and so that it can warm up if it gets too cold and needs to actually thermoregulate. Now, snakes are what we call ectothermic. So a snake's body temperature is basically the temperature of whatever its exterior factors are. So if it's 80 degrees outside, the snake's temperature is going to be 80 degrees. And now the snake can actually control this by moving to cooler climates or warmer climates so that it can actually properly thermoregulate and control its body temperature to where it feels comfortable. So those are the ranges you're going to want to have for the temperatures. And for the humidity, like I said, about 50 to 70% is great for a ball python. They will thrive in that type of humidity. And that's pretty much it, you guys, for the care of ball pythons for caging. I hope this helps any of you guys who are thinking about getting a ball python. And your cage and your temperatures and everything like that should already be set up before you even get your snake. If I'm getting a new snake, I'll actually set their enclosure up about a week before I get it. Make sure the temperatures are running correctly. Make sure that everything is in there they need as far as hiding spots, bedding, etc., ventilation, all of that stuff is very important. So definitely have your setup ready so that when you do get your new snake, it's a smooth transition from whether they got shipped or brought home from a pet store. It can be a smooth transition for them into there, and they don't have to wait for the tank to warm up. And also, you guys will be able to dial in your temperatures accurately and have an idea of where your temperatures need to be at before you get your snake. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please drop a comment. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. If any of you guys have any care tips that you'd like to add down in the comments, feel free to do so. I always enjoy learning from other keepers and other people because, you know, there isn't one way to keep snakes, guys. This is just what I have experienced. This is what has worked for me, and this is what I have had success with. So I wanted to share that with you guys and give you my knowledge based off of my personal experiences and my personal successes and failures keeping these animals. So I hope you guys have a good night. Peace.